I was all ready to upload a blog post I did concerning Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton's response about the email scandal. My blog post said that she hadn't addressed the issue, that she was avoiding key points, and it was very scathing. But before I uploaded it, something told me I better go back and just do a Google search to see if she had in fact addressed these issues. Has she talked about the email scandal? And Google search did in fact bring up the email conference that she had, news conference she had earlier this year, where she addressed the controversy and took reporters' questions at the end.
I know there have been questions about my email, so I want to address that directly, and then I will take a few questions from you. There are 4 things I want the public to know. First, when I got to work as Secretary of State, I opted for convenience to use my personal email account, which was allowed by the State Department, because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of 2. Looking back, it would have been better if I'd simply used a second email account and carried a second phone, but at the time, this didn't seem like an issue. Second, the vast majority of my work emails went to government employees at their government addresses, which meant they were captured and preserved immediately on the system at the State Department. Third, after I left office, the State Department asked former secretaries of state for our assistance in providing copies of work-related emails from our personal accounts. I responded right away and provided all my emails that could possibly be work-related, which totaled roughly 55,000 printed pages, even though I knew that the State Department already had the vast majority of them. We went through a thorough process to identify all of my work-related emails and deliver them to the State Department. At the end, I chose not to keep my private personal emails, emails about planning Chelsea's wedding or my mother's funeral arrangements, condolence notes to friends, as well as yoga routines, family vacations, the other things you typically find in inboxes. No one wants their personal emails made public, and I think most people understand that and respect that privacy. Fourth, I took the unprecedented step of asking that the State Department make all my work-related emails public for everyone to see. I am very proud of the work that I and my colleagues and our public servants at the Department did during my 4 years as Secretary of State. And I look forward to people being able to see that for themselves. Again, looking back, it would have been better for me to use 2 separate phones and 2 email accounts. I thought using one device would be simpler, and obviously it hasn't worked out that way.
Because liberals are now starting to get antsy about the email thing, and they're saying that Hillary hasn't addressed the issue, where in fact she has. Now, the Republicans are keeping it going, as we knew they would. Okay? We knew they would. Now, the email thing is this. Hillary Clinton did have a personal email server, but it wasn't her personal email server. And I think that's the thing that she has to kind of reiterate, even though she covered it in her initial news conference. The personal server that was set up was actually set up by former President Bill Clinton. It was his personal server that, because he no longer had a government account when he became former President Bill Clinton. Okay? So he had an email account set up that he wanted to be able to shoot out emails himself. We all don't have former presidents that we're married to. So this is not something that we can personally relate to, having the ability to set up our own personal server. Former presidents coming into the office now might want to look into having something like that set up, but we didn't have that thing set up. So we can't relate to that part of it. But what we can relate to is the other thing. Having a job email and having personal email. And a lot of times when we're at work, now and it doesn't happen as much now, but it happened a lot when email usage first came into being. And that's talking about, I would say, around the mid to late 90s, when a lot of us found out that we could use our work email to send out personal emails. Because when we first, if you go back, and that's not for the young people, this is for who don't know anything about work email versus personal email. They just know about personal email. But when we first, and you have to think back on this, when we first started getting work email, access to work email, a lot of us didn't know that we could shoot out emails to other people outside of our company. But then when we found that out, some of us used that as our only email. So you would shoot out a personal email to somebody, but on your company email. Then the company started cracking down, saying, they didn't want you to use your personal email, your work email for personal usage. Then people started getting Yahoo email accounts, Gmail email accounts, right? And so then we were able to some people started using their personal email to shoot emails to their friends, and then their work emails to their work, even though there was still some intermixing of that. If anything, I believe Hillary Clinton got caught up in trying to, like she said, if you go to the original email news conference, being convenient. And it kind of bit it in the butt. But a lot of us, if you go back, a lot of us find ourselves sometimes in that same situation. If you're not smart, you shouldn't find yourself in a situation now in 2015, because a lot of companies have been emphatic about only using your email account for business reasons. And then some of us has found out the hard way that your company email is the property of the company. And some people, particularly ones who have gotten involved in some, extramarital affairs or whatever, have found out that, and they emailed each other back and forth on company email, that the company owned those emails. So it's been very tricky. But how you feel about Hillary Clinton and the Clintons will be how you take this email scandal, right? Even if you even call it a scandal. Now, you have to be smart. The right is going to continue to use this because, they're going to want to bring Hillary down by any means necessary. Okay, so they keeping it going every day. And there's really, unless Hillary talks about it every day, which doesn't make logical sense, but unless she talks about it every day, saying the same thing over and over, it's going to look like there's new information being unleashed when there's not. Okay, whether or not she released knowingly classified information, that's one thing. Let me just say this. There's no proof that she knowingly released classified information. Now, whether or not she said in February emphatically that no classified information was released, and in fact, some may have been released because it wasn't marked, which is a different problem, a governmental problem in and of itself. And really and truly, seeing how we've had some hacking of some government records lately, I probably would have been felt more secure having Bill and Hillary's personal server to shoot information back and forth. The government hasn't proven that they have been that secure. What's so funny is that at any other time, the right would agree with that assessment. They don't trust the government in anything. But now the government is real powerful and forthcoming, when it comes to let's attack Hillary about this email thing. All right. And as far as I know, I saw the story. They said that the server provider, the Bill's personal server provider, kept the server in the bathtub of a loft apartment. And that sounds, a couple things from that. One, still hadn't been hacked. We ain't got no information that it been hacked. And two, We don't know what Gmail keeps their personal servers. You don't know what Yahoo servers are, Gmail servers are. We have no freaking idea. You know, they could keep it outside in the regular outhouse as far as we know. So that's not as big a story as you think. Bottom line is, Hillary had a personal email server that she conducted some business on. She admitted it, that maybe it's unwise now looking back that she did that, but not because the national security of the United States was compromised. Two, how you feel about that is basically how you feel about the Clintons anyway. If you went into this thing thinking that the Clintons was shady and you bought into everything that went on in the 90s with all that Whitewater stuff that ultimately bared no fruit for the Republicans, you're going to distrust Hillary now, and it gives you food for fodder to say something about that and continue to rail against her. But for me personally, this is not a big issue. I'll be looking at whether or not Hillary can hold office of the United States. I originally thought that she hadn't addressed the email scandal. I was wrong. I went back and she actually addressed it at the beginning, and she addressed it to my satisfaction. There's really not a whole lot more that can be added there, but that's not going to stop the Republicans from continuing to, bash it every single day. But how you feel about Hillary going into it is how you're going to feel about it coming out of it. If you thought she was competent and you liked it going in, email scandal is not going to change that. And if it was vice versa, you thought she was shady and all that, obviously the email scandal is not going to change that. So it's going to be interesting going forward, but I don't think it's going to make a difference whether or not she becomes president of the United States of America.